the show that goes into detail of all the techniques and tools that come up in the Great British Sewing Bee, because they don't necessarily have the time to go into detail with those techniques, but we do. And we do that with master tailor and couturier Carol Elaine, who is here with us again. Hey, Carol.
Hi, Stuart. How are you?
Very well, very well, very well. Now we've got the reduce, reuse, recycle episode out of the way.
Done.
But it was, in certain respects, it was good. But then for me, in other places, it was a bit of an episode. Yeah. So, but
I know what you mean.
Yeah, well, and I'm sure that will come up as we talk. But let's go straight into it with the pattern challenge, because it had the garment that I think can often get overlooked because of it looking simple, but maybe not. And that's the waistcoat.
Right, the waistcoat. I agree with you. I've got it back here. The waistcoat is a really complex garment to make, and if you make it in the traditional way, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of technique involved.
Really? Because as I say, you think, I mean, especially that back there, the back is often overlooked because you don't see it. But is it 4 pieces? Is that right? Or the front and the back? That's all it is, isn't it?
Yeah. So I mean, we saw that go wrong. But you here's the outside of the back. So you have 2 pieces here, joined in the center seam, but then that has to be lined. So you need 2 more. So you need 2 pairs.
Right.
Or you need 4 of these, because this part has to be lined.
Right.
And it's very tricky garment to make. I mean, it's practically, if it's done correctly traditionally, it is a jacket with no sleeves. So you can have collar on it, it can be single-breasted, double-breasted, it can be a footman style, you can have a notched collar, you can have a shawl collar. I mean, and then in the traditional way, you'd have a grown-on facing. So the facing that would be on the front would come around the back.
Oh, so really?
Yeah, you'd have a slim piece of garment fabric here.
Wow.
And it all has to match up, and you tailor this like you tailor a regular jacket. So you're always working, to make everything lay and curl back into the body. The challenge that we saw was a very simple, bagged out version of a waistcoat. And where people got into trouble was the neck edge, because this, as we've learned, this is on the stretchy part. Part of this is on the bias of the cloth. So when you put everything together and you sew that seam and you're trying to get everything turned inside out, this can become very unsteady.
Right.
Which you saw in some of the finished articles. But no,
is that the traditional way of doing a waistcoat with that bagging out, or was that the way their pattern had told them? How would it normally be done?
It would not normally be done like they instructed. Yeah. And I think a lot of time, to be fair to the contestants, some of them were caught out because the facing was creeping out into the main part of the garment. They could see that. But I think, on reflection, that had to do with the size of the pattern pieces. So I think the facing was marginally too big, and probably the front lining was too big. So they sewed it together honorably, as they were told to do at 1 centimeter, whatever. And then what happened was the inside of the forepart, or the front, was bigger than the forepart. So I think that was a fault to the pattern, and I've seen that all through the competition. I've seen the pattern draft is not really helpful to the contestants.
And actually, it's a good point, because we've downloaded the Romper Suit, haven't we, to have a go at making it ourselves. And you did comment to me, you gave me sort of a heads up about the pattern in the way it was written, and it perhaps a bit clunky, if that's the right word to use.
I think that's a good word. It was a clumsy, method to make this. I made it. I made the romper. I had trouble with it. I thought, why do this? Why is this happening? Why instruct it this way? I don't know. It was like how to make a simple thing really difficult, really complicated.
I see.
I made it. I have it here. I'm not pleased with it. But there you go.
Well, we'll talk about that later. So before we go into the tutorial, tell us a bit more then about this buckle, which to me, I just wouldn't think anything about it, but it's quite an important part of the coat, I presume.
Sure. I mean, what you're doing is you've got two side straps, you've got a cross strap here. I like to start my strap from the side seam, but in this challenge, I don't know if you can see it, but they set their strap into the dart. So you only had a very short thing. And then, you can choose a number of buckles, and you're going to see that in the tutorial. There's so many things you can use. But the thing that you have to take into consideration is the buckle may be heavy. So it may drag everything down. So you have to make sure that the buckle is the right weight for the weight of fabric.
Would have never even have thought of that. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, let's take a look then at Carol's tutorial of buckles and slides.
Here's our waistcoat back laid out flat. It's made of two panels, main panels left and a right, seamed together along the center back line. You can see up here we have the neck edge, the shoulder line, a long deep armhole, side seam, and the bottom hem. On either side of the center back we have these equidistant darts. You can see how this is put together so that it's shaped where there's more room across the back, but it fits nicely into the neck, fitted back down into the waist, and to add for extra fit, we have this cross strap. Now it's shaped from about 1.1 inches down to the inside width of your buckle, whatever kind of buckle you're going to use. And these straps are turned, the way I like to do it, they're turned so that this seam lies in the center. So it's pressed opened before it's turned. And I always like to choose an interesting fabric. This is, when you take the coat off, you still want the waistcoat to look nice. Here we have a shot green and orange, and when the light hits it, there's lots of pearlescence and nice sheen on it. So it's really interesting to the waistcoat. Now we're going to look at how you might attach a buckle to this back strap of your waistcoat. I've chosen the type of buckle that I want to use. I happen to have it in two colors, but I think the silver looks better. It goes with the iridescence of the waistcoat. And you can see how it's made. You have that left edge with a slight break in it, a slide in the middle, and then a serrated edge on the right. So the first thing that you do is be aware that you're going to position this in the center back, right along that center seam. And to do that, just insert from the top down the left strap. And again, you're going to work toward finishing this at the center, but be aware that you might have an additional adjustment, so you might take that into consideration when you're setting your buckle. So wrap the strap around that left side and pull it securely. I'm going to use a pin here to show you what I would normally do with a needle and thread, because I do this by hand, because you want to wrap this tightly around and get the stitches as close to the buckle edge as you can. So you can see now how secure that is, and it's not going to wobble around. Now you take the right side of your strap and insert it close to the strap that you just secured. And now you're going to position this, and you're going to feed it through between the slide and that right side serrated bar. And then just simply pull it across until everything is aligned along that center seam. And you can see that you pull the strap from the short end, but it's when you pull the wider end of the strap that it locks into place. So that's how you set in a waistcoat buckle. There are so many different kinds of fittings that you can use to finish off your waistcoat. And we're going to take a look at a few of them. So I want to show you now all the different types of buckles and slides and adjusters that you could use. All of these are appropriate. All of these will go very well on the back of a waistcoat. It just depends how wide your strap is going to be and you know, the design you want. You can see that a lot of these have prongs on them. I'm going to choose this one here, and we're just going to take a look at it. So if you're going to set this in, say this is your left side of your garment, so again you feed it from the top down, and I'll just put a pin here to show you just the position. I'm not going to pin it very close to the edge, but you would certainly sew it as close as you can get. And now we'll take our other side of the strap and feed it up that right side, pass it over the prongs and feed it through the back, and then just pull everything tight. Now in time these prongs are going to come through, but it's this another fairly secure way of setting the buckle onto your strap. Now here's a model which just has a slide in it, no prongs, and same way from the top down, feed in what would be the left side of the strap and secure that with a pin. Now you can sew this with your machine, you can use your zipper foot, or you can do the whole thing by hand. And then taking the other side of the strap, you're going to feed that through and then pass the slide toward the middle and push the strap back down through. So now you have a small edge of teeth-like protrusions there that are going to keep everything in place. So there's another option. Now we mustn't forget the old trusty D-rings. Now these are a little bit big for this example, but this happens to be what I have in stock. But you could do the same thing with a much smaller set. And what you do is you just pass from top to bottom, pass your strap through both of these D-rings, and then make your secure set of hand stitches. And then take your second strap from the bottom up this time and put them through both rings, and then part the rings and then pull your strap through, just like this. So you can see that again, that's another very secure way. And finally, I want to show you a really interesting method that I learned from my father many, many years ago, and it's called the ladder wrap. And I'm going to apply this method using a side adjuster buckle. This is what's normally called a side adjuster, and it has two slides on it. If you take your strap and you push it through from bottom up, right in the center between those two slides, and what you're going to do next is you're going to wrap it around the end, but you're going to go between the end and that first slide and pull up the end, and then you're going to push the end down right next to where you came up. So you're going to match this strap. Now you can see what happens when you pull both of these, both sides of your strap, and you secure it at one end. You can see just how sturdy this is. And I'm going to show you the alternative. Now this is the traditional way of using this, where you pass the strap up through the middle and then simply over the slide and then out through the bottom. So with wear, this traditional way is a lot looser and it can just wiggle its way out, where the ladder wrap is much more secure. In fact, my father taught me this when I was a young girl.
So we saw lots of waistcoats and we saw lots of backs, but they weren't using the silk. Well, is it traditionally silk on the back of a waistcoat?
It's traditionally a lighter version.
Oh, I see.
And a lighter version of the, it is a lining fabric. It has to go on and it has to not conflict with the jacket that you're wearing over it. So it has to be a slippery fabric, you know, because you think about it, you've got a shirt,
Yeah.
you've got a waistcoat, and you've got the jacket. So there's many layers. That middle layer has to cooperate with the shirt and the jacket, and it needs to be a little bit slippery, and it needs to be interesting because, you know, if you take the jacket off, which gives the whole outfit a new dimension.
Yeah.
When you maybe you're relaxing after the formalities of the evening, then you want something which is a little bit interesting, you know, and just like I said, just gives another dimension. So, I mean, in the tutorial you saw that I use a shot lining, so it's made of 2 different colors.
Beautiful.
So this is made of a red and a green, and you can see it's lively, it's interesting, and
wonderful.
It reacts to the light. So
how I don't know, in the past or even now currently with creating waistcoats, do you find that the front should always be the limelight and the back perhaps not so, or actually do people, designers and creators, go for a wow back statement to almost take the eye off the front? How do the two work?
I think it's a balance. So if you had a really wild tweed, you know, if we saw Raf's fronts dazzling, right?
Yeah.
So then, you know, you don't want anything to compete with that. It needs to be harmonious. But it, you know, you have a master of the hunt waistcoat like Andrew chose the traditional red. Well, then you could go a little bit jazzy or quirky, or, you know, with the back. But I think it's a question of balance. Okay. You shouldn't nothing should compete. It should work together.
Okay. And now the sewers obviously had a difficult challenge because it was reduce, reuse, recycle. They had to use material that was given to them from the haberdashery. It was they had to use worn items, didn't they? So therefore, they perhaps didn't have the option of using you know, a set silk or a lighter fabric on the back.
Correct.
But they seem to cope well with that. And as we saw, we talked about Raf's already and Andrew's wonderful red piece. But what about Adina? Because Adina had difficulties. I know you mentioned it right at the beginning. You said, how did you word it? A pair for the back or 4 pieces. And I think she said, why didn't they just say 4 pieces?
Exactly. That's the problem I have with the directions in general, and having worked through a couple of the garments. But yes, cut 4 would have been helpful, right? Because it's the same outside and inside, unless they chose to make it contrast. But basically, you need 4 backs. You need a left and a right, and then a lining left and a lining right. So, but I liked her garment. I really liked the fact that she decided to put a jetted pocket and flap in the side seam. I thought that was really ambitious. She did set herself up for a battle, though, when she forgot that she needed 4. And then instead of going back to the haberdashery to get something silkier and less bulky, she decided to just pick whatever she had. And you know, bless her, because this is what happens with Adina. It's just it's a planning thing, and it's just kind of riding along and then just battling through what happens as a result of that lack of planning. But I liked her waistcoat. I thought it was really interesting to see that particularly the angle that those pockets
came in. I
love
the front. Yeah, seeing all those darts and side, it gave it a bit of dynamism, I felt.
I totally agree. And I think if she would have got the brief correct, and she would have had a really dazzling garment, don't you think?
Oh, definitely so. And I know this will probably come up as we talk. The brief was obviously reduce, reuse, recycle. Did she not use, you know, those garments, you know, that side pocket? And I know Patrick had a bit of a moan that side seam therefore was bulky, but come on, remember the aim was to reduce, reuse, and recycle. So it was clever to have that half a pocket showing.
Of course it was. It showed this is what I'm doing with a jacket which has no more useful value there, but I'm going to give it another lease on life here. Absolutely. totally get that.
It seemed the judges just completely, well, Esme did battle that corner, didn't she?
What you mean by saying yes? Well done. It was ambitious. It was ambitious. Yeah, I don't know. It's
I know.
I liked what Adina had planned.
And then we had. Tell me about this, because this was an issue with quite a few of them, with Damien and I think Rebecca. That it was off kilter on the front. They kept referring to those points at the bottom of the waistcoat. What was going on there?
Okay, so when you got to match your buttonholes and your buttons, and you're lining this up for that final act, which is, you know, putting the buttonholes in. What you need to do is, I guess if I use my hands, you just need to marry things up. You need to put the two fronts together.
Right.
And then you would pin through. You would mark your buttonholes, your 5 down, and then you would transfer that marking through to the other side. Okay, if you don't do that, you know, if you don't do that and lined it up, you end up with this, right?
Oh.
So they might have put their buttonholes here and then thought, oh, the buttons will work.
Yeah.
But actually, when you button them together, there was a misalignment.
Oh, I
so
see.
it's really, and what you just put those 2 4 parts, marry them together, transfer your markings through all the way down, and then things will work. It will line up.
Because I say a couple of them went wrong there, didn't they?
The thing is, Stuart, we don't see a lot of the program. We don't see their method of lining things up, so we don't know what happened.
Did you have a favourite out of those 7? Because we've only got 7 sewers left. We've got Andrew, Damien, Raf, so our 3 men, and then Serena, Rebecca, Fari, and Adina. Yes,
well, I don't think you can argue with Raf's. I mean, he chose a really jolly front to the waistcoat. He matched it with a lovely purple in the back. He went the extra mile with joining the stripes to create the 4-part he needed. It was just a beautiful job done. And he's, you know, to do that, you have to be a natural engineer, which is what Raf.
Yes. And I suppose that's where his job comes in. He's a textile designer. He's working with fabric. He obviously cuts and joins. It must do, because no one else deconstructed the old suits, did they? Everyone just cut and pasted, but he pulled all that tweed apart to then sew together to make one piece of fabric, didn't he? I mean, that, as you say, that's a designer, architect mind.
That was going the extra mile. I thought Andrew deserved a bit of praise, because you know, it's one thing to do something dazzling and you know, use a complicated fabric. It's another thing to take just a plain, you know, fabric, the hunting Master of the Hunt red, which I really like, the purity and function of that design. And again, he was called up because his facing came out a little bit, but I think that was a pattern problem. I don't think that was a sewing problem.
Well, let's move on then to the transformation challenge, which I kind of had a problem with. I know military surplus is surplus to requirements, but it still felt terrible that they were just cutting all these up. I had a bit of a problem with the judging, because they perhaps weren't watching how much they were cutting all these up, because I think they did say, be careful on how much waste you create. But anyway, they had to make a chic garment was the brief.
That was the brief, yeah.
And how did you feel about what they created on that round?
Yeah, I thought that was really clumsy. So I don't know what else to say. It was just, I mean, they got these fatigues and then they just tore them apart. And actually, I quite like Damien's. I like what he did with the sleeves.
Yes.
You know, I thought that was really interesting and inventive. I liked, I think I agreed with Esme when she said that Serena's was not really a transformation. She just made a really elegant piece, which didn't, it didn't, it wasn't a reinvention as much.
No. The skirt idea was nice though, with that camo,
But that was rather easy, wasn't it? That was just taking a length of that and chucking it on the bottom. That was rather, that was not too inventive. I quite liked Andrew's with the draping and the pleats and the tucks. I liked that. I thought that was really interesting. Of course, Raf, again, by making this asymmetrical thing with a big billowy sleeve, and again, the engineering in that, and then just having the zip just sort of pass over the shoulder.
Pop of orange.
Yeah, and of course, again, so he's a natural engineer, but also he has the visual instincts. So, and I think that bright orange really lit up.
Didn't it just?
The camo, and then made it a catwalk piece. So I think, that was beautifully executed. Fari's cape, which I thought, wow, that's just, I didn't get that at all. And that wouldn't have got my vote, but then, I guess, and I don't know why it didn't get my vote, but I didn't think enough was done. I think the cape idea and just taking that idea of the shoulder pads and then just making a seam, and to me that didn't travel. You know what I mean?
Indeed,
it didn't travel.
I found it a little odd when the judges were liking it, and I don't know whether Esme just got caught up with it, because I come back to the brief, and this is where, as the series goes on, I have more and more problems with them, with the brief and the judging. It's not the sewers. The sewers are doing really well. It's this judging, and it was a chic garment. It's whether you could argue that was a chic garment.
I don't think so. It did nothing for me. It did literally nothing for me, and I've sat here alone thinking that's not special, but. And technically not that difficult.
Yeah.
And that's where, if you put that against Raf, what he used that uplift of the zip, to really create some lovely lines across half of the body and then make that billowy shape. So, I mean, it was no contest. And it lost me there, because I thought they just, perhaps who's not paying attention here? That's what I thought.
Yeah. What about Adina? And see, I quite liked, where she had like a tabard effect, and she had the front and the back, and this kind of revealing mesh, but it was with the fringing that she then sewed together, and they kind of slated that, saying, well, why would you do that with the fringing? But I kind of like that see-through effect. What did you think of that?
I did too. I liked that. But it did look a bit cut and pasty. I'll just rent a haberdashery. I'll just get something because actually I haven't sized it well, and it's not going to fit. So I'm just going to put something in there. But no, I think she, we talked about the greatest saves. And I think Adina in this round, I'm sorry she's gone. Somebody has to go, and it's really sad. But I think she made two very great saves. And one was the use of that trim, and the other one, of course, was the, oh no, I need two more backs. So she saved the waistcoat.
Oh, she did.
We need to give her the vote of the greatest save. Okay,
Adina, you get the greatest save for those two garments of the waistcoat. So well done. So your favourite of that round then, was it? Am I saying it was Raf?
It was Raf. For me, it was Raf. I think Andrew would have come in second because, and here's the deal with if you're going to use the bold green, you have an edge because visually the bold green speaks better, right? But if you're going to use the sandy camo, you've got a problem. That's for me what made Fari's cape really uninteresting. the color didn't speak. But then Andrew chose that color, but then he built up his garment.
Yes.
So he had the volume. So for Andrew, he made the best use of that. So less visually impactful camo.
I want to just bring up an issue that you raised last week about the judging and how some of the wording from the judging can come across as kind of bias, or certainly not helpful, because it's not really judging, it's just saying that was good fabric or something. Did you pick up on Esme, what she said to Rebecca in the judging? Rebecca came sixth, so one from bottom. They just judged Adina and said, oh, well, your transformation is not very good. Then they had to say Rebecca, well, they said, and 6 is this one. And Rebecca went, that's me. And Esme then said, it was great, Rebecca. And I wrote it down because I was like, it was, and her answer was, it was great, Rebecca. It was just that they were all great. It was really difficult to choose.
Yeah, I got that.
And that's just frustrating, because if I was Rebecca, and this goes back to my teaching days, I know that some students would be annoyed by that. I think I would be annoyed by that. It's like, well, I've come 6. I'm one from bottom. You're giving me feedback that makes it sound like I should have been top.
Yes, you can't get away with that. You can't say, if you're a judge, this was really hard to judge. You don't get away with that.
No, that's right. It's what I think.
And that's inexcusable. I don't think they have their criteria in order. And I think that is going to come through in the next round. But that's heartbreaking. Because I think if you've watched Rebecca over these 6 episodes, they've said to her, sent things to her, and she's like, yes, thank you. Yes, okay, fine. She's just settling. She's settling for where she is, where she ends up in the judging. But I think there were many instances. Well, I can think of one, and that was the romper, where Rebecca, her finished product was far better than Serena.
Yeah.
And because of the placement and the choice of fabric, and they were both, they were neck and neck. But we're going to give Serena first. Well, why? Why?
Right. I think they've got to look at that as if we're being really critical from a program point of view, they've got to give better reasons. And you can be constructively critical and not be horrible, can't you? You know, teachers do it every day. You've got to give feedback and just say, that was too big, or this is too lumpy, or this could have been better by changing this. You can give constructive feedback, and there was nothing there, was there?
And that's why, if you have 2 equally good seamstresses or technicians, you can say, these are both good, but we have to rate them. So we're going to then jump up to the next set of criteria, which is choice of fabric, which is placement of design. It's not hard.
No, and surely with Esme's experience, she could do that easily, couldn't she?
She should be. She should be able to. But I'm perplexed at this. And I think a lot of people are in the community are really befuddled by it and frustrated by it. And certainly me, because I have to rate people, I have to help people, and I have to do that. And in doing that, you have to call things by their right names. That's what you have to do.
Yeah, because when you look back on that, you go, if I was then Damien or Andrew and I came above them, I'd be like, oh, am I in the wrong place then? Should that have been higher? Or sewers, they're going to be looking and thinking, oh, well, why was that not higher? Those discussions start happening, don't they? Or if I was Rebecca, I might be saying, are you just saying that because I'm one of the young ones? Are you not giving me criticism because I'm a younger one? And I can't,
and also, if you were Rebecca, you'd be saying, oh, So it doesn't matter if I choose a challenging fabric and if I go the extra mile and I try to place things in a certain position. Oh, are you telling me that all I have to do is be a neat sewer?
Yeah.
Is that all I have to do? Just that, nothing else.
Yeah.
See, I think that
they need to up their game.
Yeah.
So let's move on to Made to Measure then, which was exciting because they're using jeans and reused jeans. They had to reuse jeans to make a woman's dress. That was the brief. How, from your point of view, with use of material, how did you feel about the brief and the use of denim? What are your feelings about denim?
So, well, denim is a really sturdy fabric, and it behaves differently depending on how it's woven. So you can have some very stretchy denim. You can have some very heavyweight, I'm not going anywhere denim. Lighter weights. The colors actually lend a lot visually to the story of what they're trying to accomplish. But denim is a very determined cloth because it's very hard wearing. And it can fray easily or it cannot fray easily. It just depends on the weave, so there's a lot of different factors. So to throw all these jeans at people and say, make something, I think that was a really interesting challenge.
So they had to make a women's garment, and we really, on this round, started to see people develop. But I felt we started to see the episode title kind of lead the way. And I was getting a bit worried at one point that I was thinking, oh, are they going to get too involved with the eco side of things of reduce, reuse, recycle, and kind of use that to underpin the judging?
I think that certainly happened. I saw a seduction of story in this challenge. And I think that there was they lost sight of the technical advancement of some people, because look, there's been some improvement. People got a lot they want to show now. There's not long to go. We're over the halfway point. People want to prove that they can actually do things. So let's talk about the winning garment, right? This is tricky because you've got all these pattern pieces. They're all going to be sewn together horizontally, which means the girth, is going to be the focus in this piece. I thought Raf had an interesting idea, but I think he lost sight of the master pattern. So his master pattern was an A-line dress, very simple to execute, very little fitting required. You could see at the end he added some darts, into that cutaway line from the neck to the underarm. So it was really easy. If it didn't quite fit the model, just put a dart in. It was all raw edges. It was all, whatever angle happened. So the challenge there, the fitting challenge, was very low. He put a lot of emphasis on the impact, but I think he lost sight because as he layered all those wavy things, the pattern pieces, and then as he joined them, the hemline got distorted.
Right.
And he lost sight. I don't know why he didn't just cut the garment and then just lay on these pieces. Because then the hemline wouldn't come up. And when the model came walking through with the finished item, I didn't know if it was a top or a dress, because the hemline, right? But of course, the hemline ended up quite wavy as well, which may have been his intention, but it just didn't look right. It looked like in the installation of all these, it just drew the hemline up, and he lost sight of his seam allowances. That's what I thought. I might be completely wrong. And then he said, I'm going to fringe everything. Well, that didn't happen, did it? He didn't really fray things.
No, it just how it
it was just how it came out. And then also the fit in the back was not accurate. And I thought, okay, again, they got caught up in the seduction of the story.
Yeah, that's what I felt.
Oh, right, okay. And I think the garment of the week was really misjudged, and on this occasion.
Yeah, that's where I felt maybe because of the episode and Patrick saying, you know, this is we throw away so many clothes, or there's so many clothes in landfill, which we do all know about. I just didn't know whether that it was fitting to talk about that garment more, perhaps because some of the others didn't have that sort of story, did they? They just were a garment. So, and then you look. Go on.
No, I think that in episode 6, what the sewers are thinking of is I need to be technically expert at whatever I do.
Indeed. And
because the waistcoat challenge was a bit, the pattern was very strange. Everything worked against people in the pattern challenge. And then the transformation challenge, well, that was just, you know.
Yeah, skip that.
That was what it was. So this particular made to measure challenge, there was a lot riding on it.
And that's where you then look at some of them who really did try to push their skills and techniques and produce a very technical, clever garment. Andrew's herringbone.
Dazzling. That was the garment of the week.
Yeah.
Whatever the judges said, that was the garment of the week. And the fact that they said it didn't fit in the back, well, that was part of the design, I thought, because it hung from those very clever straps.
Yeah.
And they said, oh, there was plenty of opportunity to fit. No, there was no opportunity if you're going to maintain that equidistant stripe. There was no opportunity. Oh, how awful would it have looked if you would have started to narrow the stripes in the back? That wasn't the object, and that was completely overlooked. So the garment of the week belongs to Andrew. No, I mean,
how many technical things were in there? How many did you count with you know, skills were shown in that garment?
I mean, pattern by Pythagoras. Let's start there, right? The spiral effect.
Yeah.
The joining, the technical joining, the use of color, completely went unnoticed. He really used the color well.
Yeah.
Unlike Serena, who has this obsession, you know, with her hat. I'll just put all the dark color here and I'll put all the light color here. Yeah. Okay. When I do my waistcoat, the whole brocade will go here and the black will go here. And every time she put a garment together like that in contrast, I felt like the model was just going to fall over.
Yes, off balance. Yeah. It's absolutely interesting, isn't it?
But if you look at Andrew's really wise use of color, considered layout, and then the rivets.
Yeah.
So
such a little detail, but made it, didn't it?
It really did. It was a subtle little juncture, huh?
Yeah.
And every scene, every single meeting of the scene, he did that. So, you know, I'm sorry, Andrew, once again, you're overlooked, but he's improving and he's being more and more inventive. And I hope that in the next weeks that he'll, you know, shine through even more.
What about Farry's black and white dress then? You know, going completely away from the stereotypical blue of denim, going for the black and white.
Yeah, I like the idea in principle, but I think it fell on its face graphically, because I think the two white, it was too proportionally even and it just didn't work. She also made the hip round on one side just way too round. So then you had all that buckling. I think it would have shown better on the catwalk if she would have undone the zip level to the bottom of that first white section, which would have made it a much more open neck, because she had a great blotch of white and then some black and another great blotch of white. So proportionally, it just didn't work. It wasn't aesthetically pleasing for me.
Now, Rebecca, I kind of felt for Rebecca here because I'm a patchworker. And I know what doing that technique is like. But for a patchworker, that technique does come very easy. You're used to matching points in patchwork. So it was interesting to hear Patrick going, oh, that's quite technical, but actually from a patchworker, and I think she obviously is a patchworker, her family is a patchworker. So I can understand that technique, but the colours were slightly odd, I felt. Did you not feel on that
Yes,
piece?
I thought so too. I agree with you, Stuart. I thought it was a great, blaze of color down the center front.
Yeah.
And then it didn't quite merge with the blue. And then also she had some separate side panels which were supposed to equal the width of the strap, and they didn't. So that was what threw that off. It would have been better if she maybe had a red strap or a red side body or something, just tied the colors together. But this flash down the center front and then just overruled everything else. And then it didn't quite line up at the shoulders. So that was a shame, because she could have used that feature better.
Indeed, and that was what was nice to see. She was trying these techniques again, trying to push herself. That's how I felt that was.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what that they're going to try to do that. Yeah. They say, I need to dazzle, I need to catch the judge's eye here. But then if you're going to do that, you have to support it. With the rest of the garment, don't you?
Yeah, I do feel out of all the sewers, we're not getting, but maybe we're asking so much. Of course we are. I mean, they've only got an hour and to edit it all in. But I do feel, compared to previous seasons, we haven't had enough of these amazing garments. We haven't had many wow garments yet, have we?
Yes, I agree. And I think maybe what we need is, and I don't know what's coming up, but we need a really good design brief with the fabrics to support it.
Yeah.
Because the design brief using camo is great, but then you're limited.
Yeah.
Right. So I think if they give the contestants a really good story to tell and then give them the fabrics to work with, then we might really see something.
It would be nice, wouldn't it? I feel that we haven't had a made to measure where they can give them enough time to really fit. That's the problem with all this as well, isn't it? They just don't have enough time to get to that extra level.
Yeah, and that's the tricky thing. I mean, it's just very difficult, because you buy. Here's what I've noticed, that in general, I think you could say that the center back neck is always big, right, on most of the models. Well, that's because the patterns that they're using, the over-the-counter patterns, don't take into account that natural scoop back into the neck. And so they're just straight. The back neck is straight. Well, the body doesn't look like that. So everything is coming out wide at the back. And they're telling the contestants, well, this doesn't fit at the back. Well, they're starting with a pattern that isn't really drafted to the body. And I think, maybe when they do the fitting, they're missing that. Yeah. And then they put the zip in and then they line it and they've not caught it in time. And then there's no way around that. But I think the patterns I find the patterns really strange. And I've only made one pattern. I've only made the romper. And I thought, I just chuck this pattern and start over.
Well,
I know we're going on to other things, but I think, let me just say this. I think one of the obstacles is the patterns that they are given.
Yes. And I know they're giving the pattern for the pattern challenge. I think for the made to measure, they buy the pattern, but as always, they're still using commercial patterns. And if you don't have the time to fully do it, I mean, it's very easy for us. And we're sat here, we're not on the show. It's easy for us to criticize and to nitpick at all this, but ultimately it's that time element. And yes, we know they have to have the time in to make it tension and exciting for us to watch. It's but in an ideal world we have no time limit and we stay at home and we sew, but that wouldn't make for an interesting program, would it?
No, it wouldn't. And my comments, they're very much in defense of the contestants, because I want them to do better, and I can see the obstacles that are in their way.
Yeah. And it gets more frustrating as well when we see them doing these wonderful, they're pushing their skills, and sometimes they're just not, they're not highlighted, are they? They're not spoken of enough. We sadly had to lose Adina this round, didn't we? But it was right. It felt right that she was the one to go.
It was time. Adina, she just battled her way through. I don't think that she was ever really on top of any task except that lovely formal dress that she made, which was very graphic. And she did a good job on that, and she made her own pattern. But I think things just really seemed to stump her. But she had a different speed of thinking,
she did.
working,
yes. Yeah.
And there was something very zen about her thinking. You know, she just kind of went with it. She was very chilled all the time, and oh, this has gone wrong. Well, I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to do this now. And but that speed, that's not going to get you through. That's not going to give you that edge, is it? You know, and I think if you don't know the difference between centimeters and inches, and you're in a sewing room in a competition, that's kind of, for me, that kind of said it all.
But I kind of feel kind of nice that even though we lost to this episode, we were able to give her the best save of
she got the best save on 2 counts. Well done. Yeah.
So we only have 2 weeks left before it gets really going. So we've got Winter Week next week. We've then got Musicals Week. Then it's then 2 left to go, semi-final and the final. So it's heating up with what we've got left, who we've got left. Who are you getting excited about? I know you've talked about Andrew a lot. You want to see him continue?
I do. And I think it's time now for these contestants, and I imagine they're doing it. They have to refine their strategy. We saw this with Fari, didn't we?
Yeah.
She never finished a garment, and then she thought, I've got to start playing it safe. And she did very well. And her garments are featured now. But I have to go with our natural engineer and our immaculate sewer, Raf.
Yeah.
And I think Serena really does need to up her game. She's a very competent technician, and she does beautiful work. But I think she needs to show a little bit more imagination. And then I think Andrew I hope he'll come up a notch, because I really love his work. And also I've had to sit through, 6 weeks of what I think has been a bit of overlooking his natural abilities. But then Damien, I think, is not without surprise. Rebecca, I think, has her limitations. And I'm not sure she's going to make it much further.
I think so too. I think it will probably be Rebecca next week, and then we're left with our Fari, Raf, Damien, and Andrew, and Serena, aren't we? I think that's how it will go. And then where it will go from there will be anyone's game, really, because it could be. I still like Damien though. Still like him.
I know you do.
I think it's that happy-go-lucky nature, but actually deep down, he knows his stuff and he knows his skills, doesn't he?
I think he does, and I think I said it before about him. He's a bit of a polymath. He does a lot of different things, and he calls all these talents in.
Yeah.
When he's in a mess, he can call in his computer or his woodworking or all these other things that he's used to. And he seems to pull the rabbit out of the hat. He gets away with not gets away with things. I think just calls on skills that he's an all-rounder.
And he adds to the entertainment value. I do feel some of them, perhaps don't make the edit so much because they're perhaps not getting involved as much. And I know Joe's trying to go in and chat with them, but I think Damien just naturally, because of his personality, makes the edit more, or the editors will like him because of his being, as it were.
I agree with you. Yeah. I think he's very good fun, and he comes out with the unexpected.
Indeed.
So he's got Joe on his toes.
So
Yeah, and even though you got your straight laced, you've got to do it this way, little drill sergeant of Nesme, and Damia's worked her out. You got her.
Love it, love it. So next week we've got Winter Week. Do you think they're going to have anything particular here, fabric-wise or pattern-wise? What are your thoughts on Winter Week?
I think Winter Week is about sewing cuddly, warm fabrics. So I think we're going to see things maybe a bit spongier in the textile, and I love the lumberjack shirt. Because it's 10 degrees in London.
Did we all look at me? I'm in a hoodie. I've got the fire on downstairs. It's so cold.
The heat's on, and it's going to be June, and this is not fair. But I was thinking of, even and uneven plaids, or even tartans, really interesting traditional fabrics. So I'm looking forward to the lumberjack shirt for definitely, and matching the plaids with pockets and things.
Yeah, fabulous. Can't wait.
Oh,
so that's week 6 done, 7, 8, 9, 10, 3, and then the final. Oh, where's the time going?
I know, scary, isn't it?
It's good, it's very scary, but it's wonderful, and we are overwhelmed with everyone's comments. It's wonderful reading them and joining in that discussion, that debate, and some is about the program, some is about techniques, and they're asking specific things, aren't they? That's been lovely to read.
And some of it is about your grand hat, Stuart, your great cap.
Yeah, wasn't it good?
Yeah, I'm thrilled. I didn't realize the vast community that has been created as a result of this show. Yeah. And the show is the show. And that is kind of staying where it's at. Yeah. But I think the thing that's keeping it all going is the community around it.
Without a doubt. And we've talked about the romper suit. So I printed out the pattern. That took some pages, and then sticking it all together.
Yes, you got it. Well done there. Yes.
And I've cut out my pattern pieces. I haven't brought them all home. I've just brought one home. But that's my fabric that I've chosen.
Oh, that's a lovely fabric.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have no idea of this bit. What is this bit? Okay. what will that bit do?
I know. Who knows? Can I show you the romper and the stage I've got to?
Oh God, yeah.
Okay. So again, this is a pattern I've had a lot of trouble with. I don't understand it at all. I didn't understand this bit here, which is this really acute angle here, which I thought was really tricky, especially when you're supposed to stitch in the ditch. So that seam's supposed to go up. Well, where does it go? If that's all you got. But then we come to the, and I've pinned it so that the back goes over the front, but actually these curves are so sharp.
Yeah, that's what I don't understand. Yeah.
I'll just take the pins out, and maybe I don't know what I'm doing, but that's what you get. They're very sharp curves, and there's this one, and it's all faced. I've done what they said, but I cannot see how one goes over the other. It just doesn't make sense to me. So anyway, but it's cute.
It looks
this
great.
Is the pretty part. Yeah, this is the pretty part. The back channel is really sweet.
Oh, I love your polka dots.
It's really sweet, but there's a couple of things I think you're going to have trouble here with that. And what I did on the inside, I would say, please do overlock the seams on the side. And then I just added a little piece of binding to clean up that join, because it's really awkward. So that's what I've done. But I've actually found a little girl who's 9 months old in my building. So I'm going to be able to give that to little Sophia. Wonderful. Little Sophia will wear that, hopefully. But again, it's a bit frustrating. So, let's talk more about the romper as you make it. Okay.
Indeed. Yeah. And we'll see how it goes. But this is where I felt for Adina when she said why did they just not say 4 pieces rather than two pairs?
Yes.
You can get so confused with the language, and I know this from knitting patterns. Sometimes the designers will say words because of the space. They haven't got much room, and they can't say everything because money is space. So they condense things down, and that condensing often makes it difficult and to comprehend. So I fully felt for her there. But I was the same with that sharp. I even checked that the video that they've got where Joe explains how to piece it, they're actually more curved on the video. And I went back to the pattern piece and I thought, well, that's not curved at all. It's a point, isn't it?
It is. It's a point.
Yeah.
It's like cathedral art.
Yeah.
And you know what else? If you look through the directions, one of the pictures of the back shows a little horseshoe.
Yeah.
Then you go further in the direction, and the next picture of the back is a very large curve. So even the directions don't marry up with themselves. So whoever's drafting these patterns for the sewing bee, I think they need to be refreshed.
We can now certainly feel for the sewers. That's the thing, isn't it?
Absolutely. And that's what I said. All my comments are in defense of this of the technicians there, the contestants, because there's another hurdle there, that they have to overcome. And also, you're used to kind of seeing the right side of the fabric is black, and the white side, the wrong side of the fabric is white, and those directions are reversed in the patterns. So it did just my mind was going askew. But hey, I've done my best. It was my first day on the job with a romper. I've done what I could do.
Well, it is good because, and we'll raise those points as we talk next week, and then other people who are making that romper, they can join in the discussion. We can help them too. As always, I've enjoyed our conversation, and leave us your comments and your thoughts. As always, we love reading them, and we look forward to seeing you all next week for Winter Week. See you all, everyone. Bye-bye.
See you. Good night, everybody.